Hi, and welcome to Lecture 8, Part 2, Communicating Grading Policies and Procedures with Families and Students. This will be a very brief lecture only because of the fact that most of these things some of you have already probably tried, know, and or um, felt were relevant. And I'm just going to take you through an overview of the reading and just reemphasize or bring forth some of the more critical parts to consider. So remember that in today's society, schools and parents are responding to increased expectations, economic pressures, and time constraints. And these changing times, effective partnerships between teachers and parents become even more essential to meet the needs of the children they share. And then also, Epstein describes communicating with parents as one of 6 major types of parent involvement practices critical to establishing strong working relationships between teachers and parents, or teachers and families. So as you're reading this article, make sure that you highlight and kind of focus in on the things that you probably aren't trying to improve your practice. But before we begin, when I came to teach here, I recognize a lot of cultural, socioeconomic impacts that I had never experienced from my teaching history on the East Coast. So I'm a New Yorker, as I've said before, and I did my student teaching at the College of St. Rose in the upstate New York area, and then I moved to North Carolina where I had my first teaching experience, and the similarities were so much the same that it never really dawned on me how much the type of culture, the work culture, the economic statuses of students really impedes or impacts how you work with parents and also how you work with students. So I learned a valuable lesson my first year teaching here, especially when thinking about how the 24/7 strip tourist areas impact the learning and the types of things that we do to communicate to parents. Some of the challenges I faced included parents who didn't speak the same language that I did, parents who weren't home, students who were in and out of the classroom with assignments that were obviously due, but they had no intention of returning, people going back and forth to different countries for months and then coming back and re-enrolling, a plethora of different things that I had never seen before coming from the East Coast. So I learned how to be a better communicator from those experiences because of the different dynamics that each of the families face. So one of the things I started with that process of learning how to communicate was actually identifying the roles that each of us have within the classroom. So these definitions are created from my experiences, but they are communicated through a plethora of different resources that you've probably already seen. Remember that each of us have a role in this process, educators, students, and families, and those roles are different. So as an educator, you really are the unbiased facilitator and creator of learning process, meaning that your role is to ensure students' skills and abilities are assessed in a fair and consistent manner that is communicated through assignment design and grading practices. And I said unbiased because regardless of how you feel about the student, the family, the circumstances, everything should be in a way that brings forth the best parts of the student and gives every student the most opportunities, dynamic chances for them to demonstrate who they are and to grow them. You are not the speaker of life, and to that student, you are the person that is the environment setter, meaning that you have only one role: set the environment, give the opportunities, and watch them grow. The student is the contributors; they are contributors, and the assessor or of the knowledge process, which means that their job is to do the work and also to engage in the process of assessment and overall classwork. So And when I say assessor, it's kind of your role to create the environment where they can say, "Hey, this isn't working for me," or this way that we're learning this skill is not really a good way. And it's our job to kind of take that in consideration and redesign and reshape the learning environment for them. The families, they have a very critical role. So in North Carolina, my families were my biggest supporters, meaning that we had a partnership, and it was very clear that within that partnership that their voices were heard and also celebrated, because I knew that they knew the kid. You only know the kid for 5 seconds, and 5 seconds meaning a year, 2 years, 3 years. But that family has had that kid in their lives since that kid was born. So they are the supporters and accountability partners, meaning that their role is to support students' completion of work in and outside of the classroom while ensuring that teachers are meeting the needs of their child. Also, that their child is meeting the expectations within a classroom. So, if you can tie all these roles together into an effective way of communicating, your job will be a lot easier. I will tell you that I actually did not have, I can count on one hand, and not to brag, but just to say that effective communication does work. One hand, how many parent issues that I've had. Two parents, and I remember the students like in the back of my head. Like it was yesterday, I was in a classroom with them, and a lot of those situations came from lack of communication or understanding of a parent's a student's requirements for an assignment. But all in all, if you put together these communication avenues that meet the needs or show what the students have to do and meet the needs of the families, then you can be successful. So the article talks about avenues of communication and how the teacher-parent relationship is vital to the development of schools as learning communities. So remember, although you are a classroom within the building, you are part of a community. And because school communication practices are so fundamental to involving families in the education process, CASB suggests that teacher preparation and professional development programs should actively promote the development of communication skills for teachers, which I think we are not all gifted with. That takes skill, and it also takes acknowledgement of the fact that it is not easy to just be in the way that you understand when you communicate that, yes, this teacher's I'm the teacher and what I say matters, but it's not what I say goes. The parent's voice is important, and also the student's voice is important. That is a challenge. So hopefully some of these suggestions will grow your methods of communication. They talk about two forms of communication: one-way communication, two-way communication, which I thought were pretty interesting. So with the one-way communication, it's only written. Written communication is not bad. You'll end this unit with a memo that is one-sided written communication. It can also include school-to-home notebooks or just Class Dojo would be an example of the one-way communication. Two-way communication, on the other hand, occurs when the teachers and parents exchange dialogue together. Effective dialogue develops out of growing trust, mutuality, of concern, and an appreciation of contrasting perspectives. So a teacher may contact parents to celebrate a child's successful school experience. However, more frequently the contact is to share concern, which is wrong. You can share concern with your parents, but that should not be the first reason why you're contacting them, honestly. This is a partnership, and think about your partnerships, different ones that you have. And if you're a parent, you don't always want to hear what's bad about your kid. Matter of fact, your kid's not bad. Maybe it's the process that they're learning. Maybe it's how they're learning what they're learning. Maybe it's the instructional tools that are being used. But I've never heard a birth of one of my nieces or nephews where my brothers or sisters, and I have 5 of them, that said, that's a bad kid when they come out. No, every parent loves their kid, sees the world for them, and wants the best for them. They see them conquering the world and being lights. They bring joy. So keep in mind that that's my first thought when I have a communication with a parent or family is that this was their prize, this was their joy, this is their best, maybe some of them their best moments. So when I communicate, my ultimate goal is to make sure that I am not increasing tension, but decreasing, challenge, and increasing the students and parents' ability to vocalize how they feel. So the article also discusses communication through technology, which a lot of you already know. But I thought, if possible, record student samples and performances to add to a class page, or to send to parents and families who have very busy schedules. So utilize the communication avenues that you currently have from a positive disposition. It is okay to talk about challenges that you may have in the classroom, but it's the way that you do it that makes a great difference. Barriers to communication include societal level barriers, cultural differences, and on barriers on a parental level, which include parents' negative school experiences. So you have to kind of keep these all in your head when you're talking to parents. Also, economic and time constraints, lack of technology, and then on the school level, the use of educational jargon. And then finally, there still may be one of the significant barriers may be the still traditional 5 to 15 minute parent conference. So you may have to delegate sometimes where parents can stop by and ask questions at the end of the day. So here's some final thoughts, and I rushed through this because I'm trying to honor your time, and I'm at 11 minutes. So I'm getting better at it. I will have it down 5 minutes for the next class, 5-minute lecture. Anywho, final thoughts. To begin redesigning your communication methods with families, consider the following. Examine your current methods of communicating information. Survey your families and see what works best for them, not what works best for you. I cannot stress that enough. Differentiate your communication strategies by including a variety of options for families and students. Communicate methods to families in a form that is accessible in language, medium, and mode. And for your final project, make sure you actually create what you're going to give to your parents. So if you talk about attachments, if you talk about links, add those in, because I can give you critical feedback on that. For me, I've had the welcome letter with my picture so people know what I look like, in addition to best methods to reach me, but also introduction of my education background and who I am, because parents like to know these things. And then my next communications are typically a survey, 3 questions. What's the best time to contact you? How would you like to be contacted? And then is there any information I need to know about the students? And then another survey from the students to tell me about themselves, and for the parents to tell me about themselves. So it is a consistent thing, just like differentiated instruction when we use formative assessments. I am always trying to make sure that my parents and students feel like they have a voice in the decision process in my classroom, even if there are some things that I cannot change. Like at the end of the school year, we have our end of course exam. So keep those things in mind, and I hope that the information from the article helps you build a great memo. Please make sure you look at the announcements for the next few weeks to ensure that you're developing the project to get the desired score. Have a great rest of your week, and if you do not join us for the next course, have a great rest of your school year.